In this video, I explain why educational technology has been so hard to introduce into all but the richest education systems. I then highlight some resources that Ethiopia already has and show how ethiopialearning.com is using those resources to overcome those obstacles. We then take a look at some of the many ways in which educational technology can be particularly powerful in Ethiopia. Educational technology has made its way into most classrooms in rich countries, but attempts to introduce it in poor countries have largely foundered, and there are two very common problems. The first is the burden it imposes on teachers in terms of learning to use and support the technology, experimenting with the activities, and then integrating those activities into their lesson plans. The second problem is the cost. Rich countries spend on average $315 per student per year, which is unaffordable in most countries. There's the cost of the devices and the connectivity, and there's also the cost of content creation, which is multiplied by the number of languages that you have to support. iSchool in nearby Zambia offer these tablets for $150 each. They contain beautiful content for each of the primary grades in each of Zambia's 9 languages. But they had to invest $4 million thanks to a generous individual in order to develop that content. Elimu in neighbouring Kenya offers tablets for $250 each. They only support English, and they really wanted to create all content locally, because that way the content is immediately relevant to the students they're teaching. But they couldn't make their numbers add up, and they've resorted to digitising British textbooks in order to cover the whole curriculum. Indian projects have similarly failed or gone up market for the same sorts of reasons. There are content-free educational technology systems, such as Google Classroom, that aim to facilitate the interaction between student and teacher. But they require that the students and teachers have modern devices with high-resolution screens and constant, cheap, high-bandwidth connectivity. They also require the teacher to create each and every class from scratch. COVID-19 has seen students sent home from school, and teachers have been volunteering, and the ministry has been working hard with its partners in order to develop radio and television content. But the scale of the task to develop content to cover all the subjects, grades and languages is immense, and coverage is still very patchy. With increasing smartphone ownership and the increasingly high-quality connectivity that's available throughout Ethiopia, educational technology can surely help. But how can we develop content for all the main subjects, grades and languages affordably and quickly? How can we do it without imposing a huge burden on the government in terms of vetting and approving that content? And how can we do it without imposing an impossible burden on the Ethiopian teachers in terms of learning how to use the system and in terms of integrating it into their lesson plans? Ethiopia already has PDF textbooks for every subject, grade and all of the major languages. Their content has been carefully reviewed, approved and improved upon through the years. Teachers already have lesson plans built around those textbooks, and the exams test for the textbook content. But not all of those PDFs are available through the ministry website, although they are publishing more during the school closures. The cost of downloading those PDFs at hundreds of birr is unaffordable for most Ethiopian school children. And the PDF format is not designed for use on the small, low-resolution screens that most Ethiopian children have access to. And the resulting study experience is very frustrating, and it imposes a significant cognitive burden on top of that of digesting the materials themselves. The solution that I'm proposing in this video is that rather than adapting the education system From teacher training to lesson plans to exams to the technology, we build the technology around that existing PDF content, and therefore the technology adapts to the education system rather than the other way around. In this video, Joe is studying general fertility rate and is confused about the K variable. But because this textbook is interactive and collaborative, he can ask for help. Classmate Susan helps, and their teacher praises Susan for helping. This interactivity builds friendships. It helps shy students ask for help. It relieves teachers. It improves understanding and recall of not only the helped student, but also all their classmates and the helper themselves. And it fosters a spirit of shared endeavour and pro-social, study-focused interaction. Activities can tailor themselves to each individual student. In this example, our student has forgotten the second step of the equation, so the system reminds her to multiply by k. Our student seems to be struggling, so the system gives more detailed step-by-step guidance, here giving the equation and a strong hint as to the numbers to put in it. The student gets this right, and so the system spells out the next step and returns the student to the initial question. Branching activities like these can also draw on and explore a student's personal life. This is particularly effective for teaching social or behavioural material, such as civics. In this clip, Susan is rehearsing decisions around HIV prevention. Being interactive and personalised, the activity guides the student to actually apply the material to their own viewpoints and feelings. Even when responses are confidential, shared norms are encouraged by knowledge that every other student has done the same exercise. Sometimes responses needn't be confidential, as here, where Susan has written some of the consequences of HIV infection and Joe is reflecting on those answers. Peer reflection and review is another powerful way of exploring social issues that fosters shared norms and positive peer pressure. Teachers can moderate and mark any submission by their students. The system uses some of the compelling elements of social media, such as interacting with friends, discussing and sharing, but in a controlled manner, so the student's focus is always on the textbook page. Here, Susan spots Joe's question on her feed and gives Joe that help that we saw earlier in the demo. This messaging technology can create opportunities for currently excluded groups. Pastoral children can join in regularly, regardless of where they are. It creates opportunities for children and adult students who are not at school due to work or family responsibilities. And children could work and make friends with children in different regions of Ethiopia, exploring each other's traditions and hardships and helping diffuse future tensions. Accredited school staff and teachers have access to additional books, such as curricula, continuous professional development, and school improvement proposal guidance. And activities can be added to these too, for example, to provide interactive support to staff creating school improvement proposals, to support remote teacher training programs, or to facilitate sharing and collaboration on lesson plans. All activities are created and maintained in a simple set of forms. No code is needed. Publish workflow ensures that only approved, reviewed activities are available, and activities are only made available to the relevant users. Everything you've seen in this demo works just as well on the small, low-resolution screens that most Ethiopian school children have access to. The system is designed to use as little battery as possible so that old devices can last long periods between charges. An app is provided that prevents Android devices from using data in the background, and each downloaded page is stored on the phone so that repeat visits don't incur additional data costs. Students with visual impairments can have the text narrated to them.
Geography Grade 10 page 138. Fertility rates differ greatly among continents, regions and countries. Generally, fertility rate is much.
They can view the pages in a high contrast extra sharp mode with all the images and colors removed. This mode works on Fidel pages too, when the source material is in a font that supports it. And finally, each and every interaction is tracked for engagement and progress psychometrics. Here we have a chart showing each student's progress against the average for the class, the average for the country, and the time in the school year. Here we see a map of Ethiopia showing the relative progress across the country. Note that all of this data is fabricated as no one is using the system yet. EthiopiaLearning.com is an innovative new approach that brings all the interactivity, engagement, collaboration, supervision and psychometrics of educational technology without requiring massive investment in any particular kinds of devices, hundreds of millions of birr investment in new content to cover the tens of thousands of lessons necessary, review and approval of all that content by the education authorities, or lengthy teacher training and their reworking of their lesson plans around unfamiliar material. EthiopiaLearning.com was designed specifically for Ethiopia. It works on the devices that students have access to in their homes and keeps data costs to an absolute minimum. It covers the full curriculum, all grades, subjects and major languages, and it's easy to import new material in the PDF format that the ministry uses. Students can pick up their studies where they left off and will be studying the approved curriculum and materials. And it's available now, so pending Ministry of Education approval, it could help students catch up with their studies ready for when schools reopen without making any demands on ministry staff or teachers. Please do not hesitate to get in touch with any comments, queries or suggestions at chris@ethiopialearning.com or on 0926 794 851. Thanks very much for watching.